Namaskar. Hello, everyone. So, welcome to our next episode of this podcast series on Let's Talk. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with Mr. Santanu Phukan, who incidentally was my teacher, one of my favorites, uh, and he was a professor of Cotton University, previously known as Cotton College in the English department. আৰু তাৰ লগতে তেওঁ লগত মই এখন কিতাপো co-author কৰিছো an anthology of poems called the reflections from the heart. So ছাৰৰ লগত বহুতেই আপোন, বহুত ঘনিষ্ঠ, আৰু আজি তেওঁৰ পৰা কিছু কথা জানিব বিচাৰিছো about sir himself and also regarding the education system as it is evolving in Assam. So sir, আৰু পলম নকৰাকে আৰম্ভ কৰো। আপোনাক যদি অকণমান আপোনাৰ বিষয়ে ক'বলৈ ৰিকুৱেষ্ট কৰো, প্লিজ sir.
মোৰ বিষয়ে বিশেষ ক'বলৈ নাই. I'm a very ordinary person. I was born in Shillong, educated largely in Dibrugarh and Jorhat. I did my master's from Dibrugarh University, and then I joined Tinsukia College as a lecturer. Subsequently, I cleared the APSC and was posted first in Difu College, য'ত মই 5 বছৰ আছিলোঁ কাৰ্বি আংলঙত, আৰু তাৰপিছত 1990ত মই কটনত আহি পেলাই জইন কৰিলোঁ। And I've been there. My journey has been very long. I've been teaching for 37 years. And I just retired on the end February 2021. So I'm a superannuated person. And that's about it.
Hi sir. Over the course of 37 years, according to both hazar students apni padhaise, you have created their lives, their career, something which cannot be measured in monetary terms. So আৰু I have been lucky enough যে ময়ো আপোনাৰ পৰা পঢ়িব পাইছো, আৰু আজি 30 বছৰৰ পিছতো আমি এটা মানে we have been in touch. So
That's the great thing.
we've got so which is really incredible. So অকমান কওকচোন, মানে how have things changed in the education system? আপুনি ষ্টুডেন্ট থকা অৱস্থাত, আপুনি পঢ়োৱা অৱস্থাত, আৰু in the recent times.
Okay. মই যেতিয়া graduation কৰি আছিলোঁ তেতিয়া it was a 2-year course, and we had to study the same syllabus for 2 years, at the end of which we had our exams. And পিছত MA অৱশ্যে প্ৰথমতে MA previous বুলি মানে first year was MA previous, that whatever was taught we had an examination on that, and after that when we moved on to the final year we had another set of books to read, and we had an examination on that, and after that duita combined কৰি পেলাই average marks to declare, the results were declared like that. So the good thing about those days was that, and I'm talking as a student and a teacher of literature, the good thing about those days was that we had enough time to really absorb literature, something which is sadly lacking today. I'll come back to that. আমাৰ সময়ত হৈছিলে কি, টিচাৰ্ছ বিলাকে 2 বছৰ সময় পাইছিলে, ভালকে একেবাৰে টেক্সটখন পঢ়াইছিলে, টেক্সটৰ আনুষংগিক যিখিনি কথা ক'ব লাগে সেইখিনি আমাক কৈছিলে, and we were made to read, although at that time we had very few books. The college library was in a pathetic state. The same was the case with the university library. So we had to resort to our own devices, and to internet or nasile. So information was very limited in our days. But the thing was that the passion for study, the passion for knowing, that was there, and that the teachers could instill in us because they had a long time to spend with us. এতিয়া কি হৈছে, এতিয়া 3-year degree system, এতিয়াতো অফ লেট মই ৰিটায়াৰ কৰাৰ পিছত আৰুৱে সলনি হ'ল, কিন্তু মই যিটো চিষ্টেমত পঢ়ুৱাইছিলো তাত প্ৰথমতে ঠিকে আছিলে, পিছত গৈ পেলাই semester systemটো যেতিয়াই কৰি পেলালে, it was a big blow for the study of literature, because you see, when you have a semester system, you have a set number of books that you have to teach, and you have to examine the students' knowledge of it in 6 months. Now 6 months, we say 6 months, কিন্তু আচলতে ছমাহ নহয়গৈ. That is because, say, midterm examinations, end-term examinations, মাজত sessionals, seminars, এইবিলাক সব লৈ পেলাই you can knock off at least a month or a month and a half. That leaves us with hardly any time. Taruporot, India, you know what sort of a land it is, as Pratima Pandey famously sang, Baro Mashe Tero Phul Phute. So in 12 months, you have 13 different flowers in the sense of festivals. So that goes off, holidays for the festivals. And on top of that, we have a whole plethora of government holidays. So the actual teaching time is barely 3 months. And the student has to cover prose, prose and novels and poetry and drama, uh, linguistics, all this a student is expected to master in 3 months, and a teacher is expected to teach in 3 months. Let us take just one of the papers, let us say the drama paper. You can't do without Shakespeare, you can't do without Shaw, you can't do without Osborne. For instance, I'm just picking up names at random, but literature students have to study these texts. Can any human being really understand Shakespeare in one class per week for 3 months? It's impossible. So I
Right,
don't
sir.
know about other subjects. I don't know about other subjects. Other subjects might have a cushy time. I don't know. But for literature studies, this has been almost a death knell, and I'm not very happy with the recent developments here. The
I think
good thing, if I
it is across other subjects as well. আপুনি to জানে যে now I am a honorary advisor to the placement cell and to the guidance cell for the students of Cotton University. And that
Mhm,
is in fact the most common complaint that has come up both from the faculty as well as from the students.
mhm,
Primarily যে মানে সেমিষ্টাৰটো 6 মাহ বুলি কয় কিন্তু 2 মাহো নাপাওঁ খালি পৰীক্ষা দি থাকোঁতে যায় কি শিকিছো একো নাজানো and the
mhm,
students are confused মানে
mhm.
actually পঢ়া কি হৈছে নাজানে and in fact many of them are passing out but they are totally confused যে লাইফত কি কৰিব কেৰিয়াৰ কি কৰিব মানে
Absolutely,
নেক্সট পৰ্যায়টো তেওঁলোকে চাকৰি কৰিব নে আৰু পঢ়িব নে and many of them have sadly not got enough skills to be employed মানে মই
true,
এজ এন
very true.
এমপ্লয়াৰ মই চিন্তা কৰিব লাগিব কিছুমানক মানে whether I'd be able to employ them or not আৰু আই থিংক
Mhm,
সেইটোৱে আপোনাৰ বেক টু দ্য থিং আপুনি যিটো কৈছে যে মানে ইমান এক্সাম অৰিয়েণ্টেড হৈ গ'ল বস্তুবোৰ আৰু
mhm.
মাৰ্কছ অৰিয়েণ্টেড হৈ গ'ল যে মানে একচুৱেল কনচেপ্ট বা একচুৱেল যিটো আপোনাৰ ৱেডাৰ ইটছ এ লিটাৰেচাৰ ছাবজেক্ট ৱেডাৰ ইটছ এ চায়েন্স ছাবজেক্ট মানে ইটছ বিকাম ভেৰি কমাৰ্চিয়েল এণ্ড ভেৰি টিক বক্স এক্সাৰচাইজ নহয়নে
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Mane, foundation to Gurhibole, we have no time. The students don't have enough time to learn on their own, although resources are plenty, thanks to the internet. But then again, the resources বুলি কোৱাৰ লগে লগে এনেকুৱা এটা কথা আহি যায়. See, in our time when we were taught text, we were also taught to read text critically. And so we sort of developed the critical faculty which every true student, every true teacher needs. So we don't have time to hone their critical abilities. As a result, when they go to the net, whatever they find, they take it as the gospel truth. And as a result, in your exam, in your term papers, you come across a lot of nonsense, all gleaned from the internet. So
yeah
that is one major problem because they haven't been taught to discern good from bad, right from wrong. They haven't been taught to discern that. So whatever they get, they take it as the gospel truth. It's the easy way out in any case for a student who has barely any time to study, who has this pressure of examinations on his or her back all the time. So that way, I don't think this is headed for a very uh, nice future. Let me put it very mildly. It's not headed for a very nice future. And at this rate, I think we will very soon have teachers who have passed in this particular way. So the levels of teaching will go down. And plus, the onus is also on teachers. Nowadays, for promotion, you have to attend so many seminars, you have to publish so many papers. It's all, categorized and it's all written down. So for this, you have so many points. For this, you have so many points. So now, teachers, whether they teach or whether they are busy with their own academic advancement.
হয়
So as a result, it's too much pressure and very little learning. That is what is happening.
I think you have raised a very important point there, sir. মানে মই অলপ আগতে ইন্দ্ৰ কুমাৰ ভট্টাচাৰ্য ছাৰৰ লগত কথা পাতিছিলো and one thing he mentioned was that আগতে টিচাৰৰ career was related to the student's career. যে কেনেকে পঢ়াব ষ্টুডেণ্ট সেইটোৰ ওপৰত, কিন্তু এতিয়া টিচাৰৰ নিজৰ কেৰিয়াৰটো ইজ নট অলৱেজ চিমিলাৰ টু টিচিং অৰ উইথ দ্য ষ্টুডেণ্টছ। সেইকাৰণে তেওঁলোকে নিজৰ কেৰিয়াৰ এডভান্স কৰাব যাওঁতে মানে তেওঁলোকে পঢ়োৱাৰ পৰা আঁতৰি গৈছে। চ'
Absolutely.
what is your advice to teachers? How can they get because I suppose there's a lack of satisfaction as well amongst the teachers today, because I think many of them have probably joined to teach but they are not able to do it. So Apunar, what is your advice towards them?
Well, I'm hardly in a position to advise, but you see, it's walking the razor's edge. You have to maintain a very tricky balance between how much you give to the students and how much time you keep for yourself. So, one of the things that ideally should happen is that all these seminars and whatever teachers need to attend, if they could be held during the vacation period, or if the teachers themselves could hunt up for those seminars to coincide with their vacations, then at least you don't have to take leave from your classes in order to go and attend those. Plus, I think your college hours should be absolutely college hours. You don't do your personal work there. Do your personal work once you get home. You have enough time, because teaching doesn't take. It's not a 9 to 5 job. Most teachers, I find, they stay in college for about 4 or 5 hours and then they push off. So you have that time for yourself. So you use that time. But when you're in college, give it your 100%. The students deserve it. And you're being paid for it after all. So give it your 100%. That's what I would say.
Definitely, sir. Now, in the West, মানে আপনি জানে মই আজি লণ্ডনত থাকা 20 বছৰ হ'ল, and whether it
Mhm,
is medicine, whether it is teaching, in the West এটা system এটা হয় যে মানে say somebody is doing 8 clinical sessions or 8 teaching sessions, they are paid
mhm,
9 sessions, of which one extra session is for the admin time and for their own professional development time. So সেই সময়খিনিতে তেওঁলোকে মানে যিখিনি admin work আছে, now whether that means doing just one session and doing the whole week's work in one session or scattering it over one whole week, one working week, কিন্তু teaching time is protected. বা মোৰ as a doctor, my clinical time has to be protected. সেইটোত মই বেলেগ কাম কৰিব নালাগে বা মানে it should not be done. সেইটো এটা হয়তো চিষ্টেম কৰিলে বেটাৰ হ'ব। প্লাছ হয়তো এটা ফিডবেক, মানে ইয়াতে 360 ফিডবেক ইজ এ বিগ থিং হিয়াৰ। চ' মই এজ এ ডক্টৰ ক'ব পাৰোঁ, I had to get feedback from my colleagues, a multi-source feedback across the board, and also patient satisfaction feedback. এই তেনেকে যদি এটা আৰু সেইটোৰ ওপৰত বেছ কৰি মোৰ এপ্ৰেজেলটো হৈছিলে। চ' তেনেকে যদি টিচাৰ্ছখিনিৰো এটা যদি ফিডবেক ফ্ৰম দ্য পিয়াৰ্ছ এজ ৱেল এজ ফিডবেক ফ্ৰম ষ্টুডেণ্টছ এনেকুৱা এটা যদি চিষ্টেম কৰিব পৰা যায়, তেতিয়া
mhm.
হয়তো মানে ইট উইল বি ভেৰি এপাৰেণ্ট ফৰ পিপুল হাউ দে শ্বুড ইম্প্ৰুভ, হাউ দে শ্বুড চেঞ্জ, নহয়নে?
সেইটো আমাৰ আছিলে, ইনফেক্ট নথকা নহয়. A few years ago, when I was in the department, we did have a system of feedback. তেতিয়া মই head হৈ নাছিলো, I was not a head of the department, but it was my duty to see that the feedback forms were given to the students and that we got them back. So সেইটো এটা বস্তু এটা আছিলে. But subsequently, I think across the college, many teachers objected, because তেতিয়াহ'লে মানে কি হয়, students or likes and dislikes ক'ব নোৱাৰি এইটো কিহৰ পৰা হয়. Sometimes they like a teacher because the teacher teaches really well, but sometimes they like the teacher because of certain other things, the X factor or whatever you call it. So তেতিয়া কি হয়, judgment অকমান blurred হৈ যায়. Plus এনেকুৱা এটা তেতিয়াৰ সময়ত আছিলে,
হয় হয়, নাই সেইটো
unfortunately.
হ'ব পাৰে কিছুমান, বাট ইফ ইউ হেভ এ ক্ৰিটিকেল চাইজ দেন তাৰ ভিতৰতে দুটামানহে তেনেকুৱা হ'ব, নট এভৰি ওৱান উইল বি অফ দেট কেটেগৰী। বাট আই থিংক এগেইন মানে টু ছাপৰ্ট ইয়ৰ পইণ্ট, মানে সেই ফিডবেক চিষ্টেমটো এটা মানে পিপুল হেজ টু বি টট হাউ টু ফিডবেক or
it,
what
it
is the
was
responsibility of giving a feedback.
yeah, it was not a perfect system, but in a way it was better, because teachers who scored very badly in those feedback forms, they would be called over by the head and they would be told that, look, these
Mhm.
are the things that the students
Right.
are not happy about, so please so that was there. But subsequently, that created a lot of bad blood, and ultimately it was taken away. I don't know
right.
why, but that is what happened. But yes,
আমি
subject of
আমাৰ
default from the past.
আমাৰ এস্পায়াৰ একাডেমিত সেইটো চিষ্টেমটো অলৰেডি এইটো ইনষ্টিল কৰিছো যে উই উইল বি গেটিং ফিডবেকছ ফ্ৰম ষ্টুডেণ্টছ এজ ৱেল এজ ফ্ৰম দ্য পিয়াৰ্ছ so that
Mm,
there is something objective মানে ক'বলৈ just because মই কাৰোবাক ভাল পাওঁ নাপাওঁ personally সেইটো কথা নহয় but we
mm,
can tell them কি how they can be better or how things can be changed and the same will apply to me as well মানে মই CEO হলেও I will be having a feedback from everyone the more way of working to ঠিকে আছে নে নাই so coming
true.
on to the other side of the coin which is students now এটা আপুনি ক'লে যিটো মানে কি আপোনালোকৰ সময়ত ইভেন আমাৰ সময়তো এজ ষ্টুডেণ্টছ মানে উই হেড টু ফটোকপি বুকছ যিবোৰ বহুত
Mm,
বেছি দামী আছিলে উই হেড টু গ' টু
mm,
দ্য লাইব্ৰেৰী টু ফাইণ্ড মানে নোটছ ফাইণ্ড বুকছ কাৰণ কিনিবলৈ পইচা নহৈছিলে অৰ উই হেড টু গেট নোটছ ফ্ৰম আৱাৰ চিনিয়ৰ্ছ কাৰণ তেতিয়া ইণ্টাৰনেট নাছিলে এতিয়াতো আপোনাৰ ফোনটোতে গোটেইখিনি পোৱা যায় ৰিচোৰ্চেছ এবাণ্ডেণ্ট হৈ গৈছে yet I find the resilience factor in the students is a bit less. Maybe it's a bit rude to generalize it, but মই যিমানখিনি লগত কথা পাতিছো বহুতক পাইছো মানে the resilience factor is a bit less. The respect is a bit less. So I think যিটো টিচাৰ ষ্টুডেণ্টৰ যিটো গুৰু শিষ্য পৰম্পৰা সেই বস্তুটো অলপ নাইকিয়া হৈ গৈছে. So how do you, and I think that is one of the factor that students are not able to extract as much from the teachers as they could. আৰু হয়তো সেইটো কাৰণেও টিচাৰ্ছৰ ওপৰতো এটা এফেক্ট হয় যে মই পঢ়াই থাকো এইচোন মোবাইলে চাই থাকে ডেট চৰ্ট অফ থিং চ' সেই বস্তুটোৰ ওপৰত আপোনাৰ মন্তব্য কি
I've always maintained that it is students who make a teacher good or bad. The teacher per se is not a good teacher or a bad teacher. ভাল
Absolutely.
student হলে teacher ভাল হবই. When
হয়
you have an inquisitive student, when you have students who really are eager to learn, they put a pressure on you to perform. You have to perform.
yeah
So that is number one. So I've always believed in that. Secondly, Jana Bhaskar, I have been in three different colleges of three very different, sorry, in three very different locations. For instance, I was in Tinsukia College, which is a pretty urban sort of a thing, but it is basically, as you perhaps know, it's a business town. So books and education and stuff like that, uh, it is not in the forefront, right up in the forefront. It was at that time at least. So it was more business minded. Even students were into businesses and stuff like that. Even my colleagues, some of them were into businesses. This was the scene. Then I moved on to Difu, and Difu was in those days it was the backwaters. I mean, there was just one bus that left for Guwahati and one bus that left for Jorhat. So communication was that bad, and there were practically no bookstores. And even if there were bookstores, you couldn't get the relevant books. The library we tried to in my 5 years there, me and a couple of my colleagues, we tried to improve the library a lot, and we did get some very good books. But in the long run, it wasn't sufficient. And that, as you know, it was the days before the internet. So the whole burden was on the teacher to provide the student with all the information that the student needed. And we had our own personal books, so we sometimes dictated, sometimes photocopied, give them handouts. We did that sort of a thing. But by and large, the whole point was that the students themselves were so eager to learn that they hung on to every word that you said. And they would write down, they would write class notes. And then in the examination, they would try to put everything together and write out their answers. So that was a very, very different situation. When I came to Cotton is right on Pan Bazaar, which is the leading market for books. You have all the bookstores there. So that is there. The library at Cotton is pretty good. Plus, you have access to the library at Guwahati University. Today, you have even access to the IIT library. So there are enough books. Plus, there is JSTOR and then all other sources of. But what is happening is that students are not trained to use the resources. So what happens is that they think that even if they bunk classes, even if they don't read the text, they will have enough material from the internet which they can pass off as their own answers. This sort of mentality has to change, because you will be able to extract the best from your teacher, provided first of all you are there in the classroom. Secondly, you have to show that you are interested by reading the text at least, because
Okay.
without the text there is no literature. You
Hi.
have to read the text. But what happens is, and I have found this unfortunately towards the end of my career, I have found there were students who read summaries in the internet. They would read the summary of a novel and they would think that that is it. But a novel is not just a story when you're reading it as a student of literature. There's so much more. There is language, there is style, there are so many other aspects to reading a novel as a literature student. So they, since they don't have the training in that because they are not there in the class most of the time, or even if they are hardly interested. So when that sort of an attitude becomes rampant in students, I'm not saying all students were like that. uh, there were a few very bright students who are doing very well. In fact, many of my students have themselves gone on to become teachers. So those students were always there. You know, they become like your teacher's pet sort of thing. So you bond better with them. So those students have always been there, but they are usually the minority. Then you have the average student who is there, who is listening to you, but not taking an active, uh, not actively participating in the classroom. Class notes লিখা নাই, প্ৰশ্ন সোধা নাই, আৰু তাৰপিছত এটা হেৰি আছে competitive class A. একদম least bothered. They saunter in and they saunter out এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ, because they are whiling away their time, especially in the MA classes, until they get a job. So that sort of thing can be very demoralizing for a teacher. So coming back to my original contention, it is the students who make a teacher good or bad. Teacher
Abs-
আহি পেলাইতো দিবই,
হয়
কিন্তু
ছাৰ।
সেই enthusiasmটো লাগে।
হয় হয়, মানে যেনেকে যাচি দিয়া যিকোনো বস্তুৰে মূল্য নাই, সেই তেনেকুৱা মানে unless and until somebody wants to extract it from you, there is no point in doing it. Sir, I think we'll be running out of time, so I would like to continue this conversation যদি আমাৰ এইটো টাইম শেষ হৈ যায় by sending you another link, because this is a very interesting conversation and I can't let you go just yet. So because there are several things to discuss. So আপোনাৰ যদি সময় হয়, so we'll continue for another few minutes once this link expires, if it does. হ'ব না, sir?
Okay. Sure.
Okay. So that is the bit about students, and we mentioned about the teachers as well. So one of the other things, sir, is মানে যিটো আপোনাৰ পৰা জানিব বিচাৰিছো যে ষ্টুডেণ্টছ ফ্ৰম দ্য ভাৰ্নেকুলাৰ মিডিয়াম, যোনে অসমীয়া পঢ়ি পেলাই আহিছে আৰু বহুতে তাৰ পৰা অসমীয়া পঢ়ি আহিও আপোনাৰ ইংলিছত মানে মেজৰ লৈছে কৰিছে, চ' সেই ষ্টুডেণ্টছখিনিক আমি কেনেকে আগবঢ়াই নিব পাৰো? চ' বিকজ আই ছাপ'জ দেৰ আৰ লটছ অফ গুড ষ্টুডেণ্টছ, মানে অসমীয়া মিডিয়ামতে বহুত মেধাৱী ছাত্ৰ ছাত্ৰী আছে,
Definitely. Definitely.
কিন্তু আৰু হয়তো ক'বলৈ গ'লে কম্পেৰেটিভলি মানে দেৰ আৰ চাম বেটাৰ ষ্টুডেণ্টছ দে, বিকজ মানে আপুনি ডিফু কলেজৰ এক্সাম্পল দিয়াৰ নিচিনা তেওঁলোকে ভিতৰৰ জেগাৰ পৰা আহে, কিন্তু মানে বাট দে আইদাৰ হেভ কনফিডেন্স ইছ্যুজ, নহ'লে মানে তেওঁলোকে সেই ৰিচৰ্চেছটোৱে তেনেকে পোৱা নাই। চ' সেই ষ্টুডেণ্টছখিনিক কাৰণে আমি এজ টিচাৰ্ছ কি কৰিব পাৰো, আৰু ছেকেণ্ডলি সেই ষ্টুডেণ্টছখিনিক মানে কেনেকে সেই ষ্টুডেণ্টছখিনিক আগবঢ়াই নিব পৰা যায়?
প্ৰথমটো প্ৰব্লেম হয় বিশেষকৈ ইংলিছ লিটাৰেচাৰ পঢ়িবলৈ অহা ষ্টুডেণ্টছৰ ক্ষেত্ৰত, যে ইংলিছ ভাষাটো খুব ভালকে নাজানে বা কনফিডেন্সটো নাই, বা হয়তো বহুত ভুল থাকে, গ্ৰামাৰ চামাৰত ভুল থাকে। এতিয়া গ্ৰেজুৱেট লেভেল বা পোষ্ট গ্ৰেজুৱেট লেভেলত একচুৱেলি ভাষা শিকোৱাৰ বয়স নাথাকে। গতিকে মই কি কৰিছিলো, পাৰ্চনেলি মই কি কৰিছিলো, মই খুব এনকাৰেজ কৰিছিলো গল্প কিতাপ পঢ়িবলৈ, ইংলিছৰ গল্প কিতাপ। আৰু মই সদায় কৈছিলো যে তোমালোকে ক্লাছিক্স বিলাক নপঢ়িবা, ক্লাছিক্স বিলাক যিবিলাক চিলেবাছত আছে এনেও পঢ়িবলৈ পাবা, because the classics were written in a style that is no longer used today. So read contemporary authors who write good English. অমিতাভ ঘোষ টাইপৰ, তেনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ টুম্পা লাহিৰি, ইমানবিলাক অথাৰ্ছ আছে এতিয়া কণ্টেম্পৰাৰী। চ' ৰিড দ'জ অথাৰ্ছ। আৰু কাৰণ মই যিটো ইংলিছ আজি কৈছো বা মই যিটো ইংলিছ ইউজ কৰি আছো, সেইটো মোক টিচাৰ্ছে শিকোৱা নাছিলে, না স্কুলত শিকাইছিলে না কলেজত শিকাইছিলে। সেইটো মোক শিকাইছিলে এনিট ব্লাইটন। মই একদম বাচ্চাৰ পৰা এনিট ব্লাইটন ফেন আছিলো, তাৰপিছত আগাথা ক্ৰিষ্টিলৈ গ'লো, তাৰপিছত পি জি উডহাউচলৈ গ'লো, আৰ্থৰ কনেন ডয়ললৈ গ'লো। এইবিলাক পঢ়ি 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 আই চামহাও ইনভাইব the language. And so that is what happens. The more exposure you have, the more you learn. It's as simple as that. That is a process of language acquisition. Both technicalities, I say we needn't go into that, but basically is that if you're constantly exposed to a language, you absorb it without even realizing. So
Yes.
I used to encourage my students to read as many books as possible. I used to encourage them to keep a diary, to maintain a diary, a journal. সেইটো কৰিব কৈছিলো. I used to tell them you write letters. Don't post them. Just write them and keep them or tear them up and throw them. But just keep up the habit of writing. আৰু সেইখিনি কথা যিখিনি ষ্টুডেণ্টছে seriously লৈছিলে, I'm glad to say that they improved dramatically. I still remember one student, she had come from uh, a small village quite far from Guwahati, and when she came, she was, if on a scale of 1 to 10, I would have rated her, say, at around 3 or 4. But she applied herself so well that by the time she left us, I would have rated her around 8 out of 10. So that is possible. There have been students, and she's not the only example. She went on to become a school teacher later on, and I believe she was a very good school teacher. She still is teaching, of course. And I have had other students like that. So I think as teachers, what we can do is make learning fun, make English fun. And how do you make English fun? Not by reading out Shakespeare to them, not by reading out, Charles Dickens to them. Give them contemporary stories with contemporary themes, contemporary interests. Get their interest there. Once you get them hooked, the rest is done. It's easy peasy.
So I think, I mean, the bottom line that you said is basically নিজৰ পিনৰ পৰা কষ্ট কৰিব লাগিব।
পুৰা
নিজৰ পিনৰ
কষ্ট
পৰা
কৰিব
কষ্ট
লাগিব।
কৰিব লাগিব, নিজৰ পিনৰ পৰা they have to go out of the box, মানে অকল পাছ কৰিবৰ কাৰণে নহয়, they have to read books, they should maximize the use of the language, মানে লিখিয়ে হওক কৈয়ে হওক, মানে by speaking on it on a daily basis, তেনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ কৰিব লাগিব। আৰু আৰু এটা কথা মানে which I think we will probably have to carry on to the next episode about this, আগতে ময়ে ভাবিছিলো যে ইংলিছ বুলি ক'লে অকল ইংলিছ কিতাপহে পঢ়া, কিন্তু মেৰিৰ লগত কথা পাতিয়ে হয় বা ইন জেনেৰেল মই নিজে যেতিয়া অলপ লিটাৰেচাৰ পঢ়া আৰম্ভ কৰিলো, so it is actually to do with lots of philosophies of life as well, নহয় জানো?
Of course, of course.
From modernism to structuralism to realism to all of this, যিটো বস্তু বহুতে গম নাপায়. So I think we need to talk a bit more about that. আপোনাৰ পৰা মই প্ৰতিটো দিনে কিবা কিবি নতুন নতুন কথা শিকি আছো। So we will continue. So we'll have to take 2 or 3 minutes break where I'll send you a new link and we will join in again. So
Okay.
so for our audience, I think they have found this very useful, both
I
teachers
do.
and students, and I would encourage them to follow these principles which has been discussed by a very senior professor, somebody who I have a lot of respect for. And in doing so, they will not only be able to benefit in their careers, but also become a better person, I think. And I think that should be an ambition in itself, isn't it, sir? To
True,
become
true.
better than what you were yesterday.
Yes,
And
that's what education is about.
absolutely. So let's meet again in a few minutes. I will send you another link, sir. And
Fine.
thank you very much for this part.
Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me be a part of this.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
sir.